Commander Hannah Park maintained her diplomatic smile as the Crackx representative slammed his thick, scaled fist against the council chamber's central podium. The sound echoed through the vast hall, causing several smaller species delegates to flinch. Not Hannah. She had grown used to these displays over her 15-year career representing Earth. The humans have no place in this discussion. Ambassador Drac of the Crackx Dominion roared, his reptilian features contorting with barely contained rage. Their pitiful technology and limited understanding of galactic affairs make their opinions irrelevant. Hannah observed the 7-foot-tall reptilian diplomat with practiced calm. His ceremonial armor gleamed under the chamber's lights, adorned with trophies from species the Crackx had conquered. For nearly 40 Earth years, humanity had played the role of the galaxy's submissive newcomers. The charade had been exhausting but necessary. The council chamber housed representatives from over 200 spacefaring civilizations. Curved tiers of seating surrounded a central speaking area, with the most powerful species occupying the lowest rings closest to the floor. Humanity's seat was near the top, a deliberate placement they had never contested. "With respect, Counselor," she replied softly, her voice carrying through the room's perfect acoustics. "Earth simply suggests that the indigenous population of Nexus 9 be consulted before mining operations begin." Several delegates exchanged glances. The humans were always bringing up such concerns, always advocating for lesser species, always appearing idealistic and naive. The Voidborn delegate, positioned in one of the privileged bottom rings, stirred in response. Unlike most species, the Voidborn existed as shifting masses of dark energy contained within environmental suits designed to give them physical form. The delegate's containment suit emitted a sound like distant thunder as it spoke. "The primitives of Nexus 9 lack spaceflight," it intoned, voice resonating with artificial harmonics. "By council law, their opinions hold no weight." Several delegates nodded in agreement. The Galactic Council's stance had always been clear. Without faster-than-light travel, a species had no standing. It was a convenient rule that had allowed the powerful to exploit countless worlds. Hannah nodded politely and returned to her seat. Her assistant, Jun, leaned close. "Same response as always," he whispered, disappointment evident in his voice. "Patience," Hannah replied, her expression revealing nothing. The council proceeded with the vote on the Nexus 9 proposal. Holographic displays tallied the results as each delegation registered their decision. Earth's lone dissenting vote was barely noticed among the sea of approvals. The measure passed overwhelmingly, authorizing what they euphemistically called resource acquisition, rather than the invasion it truly was. As Hannah began gathering her notes, her wristband vibrated subtly against her skin. A message scrolled across the seemingly decorative surface, visible only to her enhanced vision. A security measure developed on Earth, but disguised as primitive technology. She read it twice. "Piro Toxio Polarius authorized. Maintain position. Reinforcements inbound." Her heart rate increased slightly, but decades of diplomatic training kept her expression neutral. After 40 years of watching, learning, and pretending to be weak, Earth had finally decided it was time to show the galaxy who they really were. "Is everything all right, Commander?" Jun asked, noticing her momentary pause. "Yes," she replied, rising from her seat, "but I believe we should return to the embassy immediately." As they walked through the grand corridors of the council hall, various alien delegates passed by, most ignoring the humans completely. Some offered condescending nods, the kind reserved for beings considered harmless and irrelevant. The Martian glass towers, home to Earth's embassy, stood in stark contrast to the imposing structures of the more advanced species. Earth had deliberately designed their diplomatic headquarters to appear functional but unimpressive, another element of their long-running deception. Once inside her secure office, Hannah placed her palm against a seemingly ordinary wall panel. "Privacy protocol activate," she commanded. The room's lights dimmed momentarily as advanced security systems, far beyond what the council believed humans possessed, engaged around them. June, established direct link to Earth Command, Priority Alpha. The young diplomat's eyes widened. Alpha? But that's... I know what it is, Hannah interrupted. It's time. The air in the center of the room shimmered as a holographic projection formed, not the crude images other species had seen humans use, but a perfect three-dimensional representation of Admiral Sung, Earth's defense commander. Commander Park, the Admiral greeted her, his face grave. I assume you've received the Polaris authorization. Yes, Admiral. May I ask what triggered the protocol? The Admiral's image gestured, bringing up additional displays showing Nexus 9 and the surrounding space. Crackx forces began landing on Nexus 9 30 minutes ago. They're not following the standard resource extraction protocols. They're eliminating the indigenous population. Hannah felt a chill run through her. Complete elimination. They're calling it clearing the workspace. Our deep cover agents report they're using ecological weaponry. The Council isn't being informed of the true extent. For decades, humanity had watched similar atrocities unfold across the galaxy while maintaining their cover. Each time, they had documented, analyzed, and prepared. Each time, they had sworn, never again. What are my orders? Hannah asked, standing straighter. Maintain your diplomatic position. Act surprised when necessary. The Thunderbolt has already departed Earth space and will arrive at Nexus 9 within 6 hours. Additional fleet elements are mobilizing now. June looked between them, his young face showing both excitement and apprehension. The Crackx have 27 warships in that sector. Admiral Sung smiled for the first time. The Thunderbolt will be more than sufficient for a demonstration. As the transmission ended, Hannah walked to the window overlooking the Council capital city. Massive structures of impossibly advanced materials reached toward the sky, built by species who believe themselves the pinnacle of evolution and technology. We've waited a long time for this, she said quietly. June joined her at the window. Do you think they'll understand why we deceived them? Hannah thought about the countless civilizations that had been exploited, the species rendered extinct, all while the Council's powerful members looked away or worse, profited. They'll understand soon enough, she replied. Earth has been polite for 40 years. That time is over. Lieutenant Commander Taiwan Kim moved quickly through the curved hallways of the human diplomatic station. Other staff members noticed his unusual pace and stepped aside. Something had changed. The normally calm officer's eyes held an intensity that made even senior personnel lower their gaze. He reached Commander Hannah Park's office and pressed his hand against the door sensor. It opened immediately, recognizing his high-level clearance. Hannah looked up from her desk. She had been reviewing reports from Earth's hidden observers near Nexus 9. The images were difficult to stomach. Crackx landing ships deploying what the Council euphemistically called terraform preparation devices. In reality, they were weapons designed to eliminate all native life forms. Commander, Taiwan said with a slight bow, it's time. He walked to the center of the office and placed his palm on what appeared to be a simple console. The seemingly ordinary desk responded to his touch, glowing softly around his fingers. Security Protocol Aegis, Authorization Kim 7 Delta 9. He spoke clearly. The room shimmered as hidden systems activated. The walls, floor, and ceiling rippled like water as advanced security measures engage. The simple office transformed, expanding and revealing technology that no Council species believed humans possessed. Quantum encrypted field generators, gravity manipulation systems, and neural network interfaces appeared as the room's true form emerged. Show me, Hannah commanded, rising from her seat. The air between them filled with light as a holographic display materialized. Unlike the crude projections humans showed to alien visitors, this was a perfect three-dimensional rendering, showing real-time data from across the galaxy. At the center of the display floated hundreds of vessels, Earth's true fleet. Magnificent, aren't they? Taiwan said with quiet pride. 342 ships, all hidden from Council sensors using our phase shift technology. Hana walked around the display, studying the vessels. Some resembled traditional space vessels, while others followed designs no council species had ever imagined. Ships that manipulated gravity and space-time itself. When first contact occurred in 2089, our leaders made a decision, Todd 1 explained, adjusting the display to show historical records. We had already detected transmissions from several advanced civilizations. We knew we weren't alone, and we knew many of those civilizations were warlike. The display showed Earth's first meeting with the Crackx scout vessels, a carefully staged encounter that had presented humanity as technologically impressive enough to have achieved interstellar travel, but not advanced enough to be threatening. We would appear primitive while developing in secret, he continued. While the Council saw our diplomatic escorts as outdated cruisers, we were building something else entirely. With a gesture, he changed the display to highlight a single massive vessel. Unlike the aggressive, angular designs favored by species like the Crackx, this ship featured sleek, curved surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The HSS Thunderbolt, Taiwan said with reverence, our first true dreadnought. It uses technology the Council believes won't exist for centuries. Gravitic propulsion, photonic shielding, and matter conversion weapon systems. Hana approached the hologram of the Thunderbolt, studying its elegant design. Current status. Ready for deployment. Admiral Sung has placed it under your operational control for this mission. A side display activated, showing real-time footage from Nexus 9. The Crackx bombardment had intensified, targeting population centers with precision strikes from orbit. The Crackx fleet has begun bombarding Nexus 9. Ta-1 reported, his voice tight with controlled anger. Civilian casualties are mounting. Their ground forces are moving toward the largest settlements. Hana watched the destruction for several moments. For decades, humanity had observed similar atrocities throughout the galaxy, documenting each one while maintaining their cover of technological inferiority. Each incident had been carefully recorded, each victim counted, each responsible party identified. The waiting was over. Deploy the Thunderbolt, she commanded, her voice firm. Single ship response. Taiwan looked surprised. Just one vessel. We could send a full battle group and end this immediately. Hana shook her head. One ship will be sufficient for what we need to accomplish. This isn't just about saving Nexus 9, Lieutenant Commander. This is about sending a message. Understood, he replied, transmitting the orders through the secure network. Thunderbolt acknowledges. Captain Minji has engaged phase shift drives. Estimated arrival at Nexus 9 in 3 hours. As word spread of the human vessel's deployment, Council representatives began contacting the Earth Embassy. The Voidborn delegate was the first to demand answers, its artificial voice carrying thinly veiled concern. Commander Park, our sensors detect an unregistered human vessel moving at speeds your species should not be capable of achieving, the delegate stated. Explain this anomaly immediately. Hana accepted the communication from her transformed office, projecting only a simple image of herself seated at a standard desk. None of the advanced technology was visible in the transmission. Thank you for your concern, honored delegate, she replied with practiced humility. We're simply sending humanitarian aid to Nexus 9. The Council's decision allows for non-military assistance, after all. That vessel's size and speed suggest capabilities beyond documented human technology. The delegate persisted. Hana simply smiled. Perhaps your sensors are mistaken. Our vessel is merely an unarmed medical transport. After ending the transmission, she turned to Taiwan. Alert all Earth personnel throughout Council space. Once the Thunderbolt reveals itself, our agents may be at risk. Already done, Commander. Our people are prepared. He hesitated before adding, the Crackx will not respond well to this revelation. Hana looked back at the display showing the Thunderbolt cutting through space, its true form hidden by technology the Council couldn't even comprehend. For 40 years, we've watched species like the Crackx dominate and destroy while we pretended to be weak, she said quietly. It's time they learned that Earth has teeth. In 3 hours, the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Jin-Ho Lee stood perfectly still on the bridge of the HS Thunderbolt. His black uniform bore no rank insignia, no decorations, none of the elaborate markings that Council species use to display status. Earth had long ago learned that true power required no announcement. Phase shift drive disengaged, Captain, reported Lieutenant Su-min at the helm. We've reached the Nexus 9 system. Jin-Ho nodded, studying the main display. The Crackx fleet hung in orbit around the blue-green world below. 27 warships, each bristling with weapons that most civilizations feared. Their designs were intentionally intimidating, with jagged profiles and exposed weapon arrays meant to inspire terror. Scan the surface, Jin-Ho ordered. The ship's sensors bypassed the Crackx jamming fields with ease, revealing the situation below. 3 major population centers were burning. Crackx landing craft had deployed ground forces that were moving methodically through settlements. Life signs? Jin-Ho asked, his voice tight. Approximately 60% of the indigenous population remains, Captain, responded his science officer. The Crackx are being thorough. Jin-Ho took a deep breath. For decades, he had trained for this moment. Like all Earth Defense Force officers, he had studied countless similar atrocities while humanity maintained its mask of technological inferiority. The waiting had been the hardest part, watching, learning, and preparing while innocent species suffered. Disengage stealth field, he commanded. Full sensors active. Let them see us. The Thunderbolt shimmered into visibility. At first glance, it appeared smaller than the massive Crackx destroyers. Another deception. Most of the ship's true mass existed in folded space, ready to deploy if needed. They're scanning us, sir, reported the communications officer. Their readings will show them something unexpected. On the Crackx vessels, alarms were sounding. What their sensors had initially identified as a small human transport suddenly registered as something very different. A ship composed of materials their science couldn't identify, powered by energy sources that shouldn't exist. Open a channel to the Crackx command vessel, Jin-Ho ordered. All frequencies, all languages. The main screen flickered to show the Crackx fleet commander, a massive reptilian figure seated on an elevated command throne. His scales were deep crimson, marked with the gold patterns that indicated high military rank. This is Captain Jin-Ho Lee of Earth. Jin-Ho broadcast, his voice calm and measured. Cease your attack on Nexus 9 immediately. The Crackx commander's reaction was visible even across species barriers. His inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of surprise, before his features settled into a familiar expression of contempt. A human vessel. The commander's laughter echoed through the comms. One human ship against our armada. Your species' stupidity continues to amaze. Jin-Ho remained expressionless as the Crackx commander continued. Your primitive vessel has somehow managed to reach us quickly. Impressive for your kind. But surely even humans understand basic mathematics. One ship cannot stand against 27. Return to your world and beg the Council for forgiveness for this interference. Jin-Ho glanced at his weapons officer, who waited with quiet readiness. The entire bridge crew knew what came next, the moment humanity would finally remove its mask. We were being polite, Jin-Ho said simply. That time has ended. He nodded once to his weapons officer. Begin the demonstration. What followed wasn't a battle but a precise, calculated show of force. The Thunderbolt systems activated in perfect sequence. First, gravity manipulation fields extended outward, creating localized distortions that disrupted the Crackx weapon systems. Their energy weapons tried to fire, but the beams curved harmlessly into space. Next, the Thunderbolt deployed targeted electromagnetic pulses, specifically calibrated to Crackx technology. Communication systems failed across their fleet, isolating each vessel from the others. The final phase used precision strikes from advanced rail cannons. Each shot severed key propulsion components without threatening life support or crew quarters. The Thunderbolt moved with impossible speed, appearing beside each Crackx vessel long enough to disable it before shifting to the next target. Within 12 minutes, the entire Crackx fleet hung dead in space, disabled but intact, with no casualties. Jin-Ho opened the channel again. The Crackx commander's face showed raw shock, his reptilian features frozen in disbelief. This was a demonstration, not an attack. Jin-Ho explained calmly. Had we wished to destroy your fleet, we would have done so. Your vessels are disabled, not destroyed. Your crews are unharmed. What? What are you? The Crackx commander managed to ask. We are exactly what we have always been, Jin-Ho replied. Humans who chose peace until peace was no longer an option. Your forces will withdraw from Nexus 9 immediately. Earth vessels will arrive shortly to provide aid to the planet's population. He ended the transmission and turned to his crew. Send the complete record to Earth Command. Commander Park will need it for the Council session. Back at the Galactic Council headquarters, emergency sessions had erupted into chaos. The main chamber, normally a model of ordered procedure, had descended into a cacophony of shouted questions and demands. Species that had dismissed humans for decades suddenly found themselves facing an uncomfortable truth. Commander Hannah Park sat calmly at Earth's humble seat in the upper tiers as accusations flew. The humans have violated Council law, roared the Crackx ambassador. They concealed military technology. They attacked our peaceful resource expedition. The chamber's central display showed the Thunderbolt's demonstration in perfect detail. There was no denying what had happened. The most powerful military fleet in the Crackx armada, immobilized in minutes by a single Earth vessel. The Council Elder, a Meridian whose species valued truth above all else, raised his hands for silence. The chamber gradually quieted. Commander Park, the Elder said, his voice resonating through the hall, your species has clearly engaged in a systematic deception of this Council. For 40 years, you have presented yourselves as technologically inferior, while developing capabilities that appear to surpass even our most advanced members. He fixed his 4 eyes on Hannah. Why the deception? Hannah rose from her seat and walked slowly to the central podium. Unlike previous council sessions, no one interrupted her movement. No one dismissed her presence. Every representative watched in tense silence. Would you have welcomed us as equals if you knew our true capabilities? She asked, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Or would you have tried to destroy us before we could become a threat? The silence that followed was answer enough. Throughout galactic history, advanced civilizations had systematically eliminated potential rivals before they could develop. It was an unspoken practice that everyone recognized but no one acknowledged. Humanity chose to survive. Hannah continued. We study your histories. We saw how the Crackx eliminated the Solari when their technology began to advance too quickly. We witnessed how the Voidborn absorbed the Tellan civilization when they developed faster-than-light communication. She gestured to the display showing the disabled Crackx fleet. We chose deception over destruction. We chose to watch and wait rather than reveal ourselves and be targeted. And we chose to intervene today because some lines must not be crossed, even by the most powerful members of this council. The Crackx ambassador hissed in fury. You dare judge us? Your primitive world was still burning fossil fuels when we had mastered interstellar travel. Hannah smiled for the first time. And yet here we are. The grand palace of the Crackx Dominion glowed red under the light of twin suns. Located on their homeworld of Craxus Prime, the structure stretched across an entire mountain range, built from the bones of conquered worlds and the labor of subjugated species. In the war chamber, Supreme Commander Du-Hyun, Emperor of the Crackx and self-proclaimed Master of 1,000 Stars, watched the holographic replay of his fleet's humiliation for the 6th time. His inner eyelids flickered rapidly as the single human vessel disabled his prized warships with apparent ease. Impossible, he hissed, massive clawed hands gripping the arms of his throne. The humans are primitives. Their technology is basic. We have monitored them for decades. His advisors stood in fearful silence. 3 had already been executed for failing to detect Earth's true capabilities. "They deceived us," said General Mok, the only advisor brave enough to speak. "They presented a false face while developing in secret." Do-hyun rose to his full height of nearly 9 feet, his ceremonial armor clanking with the movement. "Then they will learn why deception against the Crackx is punished by extinction." He pressed a talon against the central control panel. "Send the signal. Activate the Purge Protocol. I want every warship, every fighter, every battle-capable vessel gathered at the Nexus point within 2 cycles." General Mok's scales paled slightly. "Emperor, the Purge Protocol has not been used since." "Since we eliminated the Solari," Do-hyun finished. "Yes, and now we will use it again. The humans have revealed themselves as a threat. We will respond accordingly." Across Crackx-controlled space, thousands of warships began moving toward predetermined coordinates. Battle stations powered up weapons systems that hadn't been used in generations. Deep storage facilities released planet-killer missiles and atmosphere-stripping bombs. The Crackx were mobilizing for total war. Back on the Council homeworld, Commander Hannah Park received the intelligence reports with grim acceptance. Earth's deep-cover agents throughout Crackx space had been sending encrypted messages for hours, detailing the massive military buildup. "They're preparing a full-scale assault," said Lieutenant Commander Ta-1, highlighting movement patterns on the galactic display. "More ships than they've ever gathered in one place." Hannah nodded. "As expected, the Crackx have never responded to embarrassment with anything but overwhelming force." "The Voidborn are also mobilizing," Ta-1 added. "Their vessels have been observed leaving their dark matter nurseries in the galactic core. It appears they've formed an alliance with the Crackx." Hannah wasn't surprised. The 2 dominant species had been rivals for centuries, but they shared a common philosophy. Power was meant to be exercised over the weak. "Inform Earth Command," she ordered. "Activate Defense Protocol Omega, and request an emergency council session." 3 hours later, Hannah stood at the center of the council chamber. Unlike previous sessions where Earth's representative had been relegated to the upper tiers, she now commanded the central podium. The chamber was filled to capacity, with representatives from every spacefaring species in attendance. "The Crackx Empire has mobilized its entire military," she announced without preamble. "Their target is Earth. They intend to demonstrate that challenging the established order results in extinction." Murmurs ran through the chamber. The Crackx ambassador was conspicuously absent. "You've awoken a predator far more dangerous than you realize," Hannah continued, her voice carrying throughout the vast space. "The Crackx do not tolerate challenges to their dominance. They never have." The Voidborn representative's containment suit pulsed with dark energy. "Your species engaged in deliberate deception for decades. The consequences are of your own making." Hannah turned to face the shifting mass of dark matter. "We kept our technological advancements secret because history taught us what happens when civilizations view each other as threats rather than potential allies. Your own records show that any species approaching your level of development mysteriously disappears." "Speculation," the Voidborn dismissed. "Fact," Hannah countered. "We have maintained records of every species eliminated because they developed too quickly. Every civilization deemed a potential threat and subsequently removed. The Solari, the Tellan, the Quarn, all erased because they might one day challenge the established powers." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of dozens of different species. "We chose deception over destruction. And we chose intervention on Nexus 9 because genocide cannot be tolerated, regardless of who commits it." The Voidborn representative's suit emitted a sound like distant thunder. Bold words from a species about to face extinction. The combined might of the Crackx and Voidborn armadas has never been defeated. To prove her point, Hannah activated a small device on her wrist. It looked simple, a band of metal that could have been mistaken for jewelry. The center of the chamber shimmered as reality itself seemed to fold inward, a stable wormhole. Technology the Council had deemed theoretically impossible opened before the stunned representatives. Through the swirling portal, they could see the surface of Earth's moon, the sea of tranquility clearly visible. "We could have deployed weapons throughout Council space at any time," she said as the portal closed with a soft pop. "We could have struck without warning. Instead, we chose peace. We chose patience. Until now." The chamber erupted into chaos. Species that had dismissed humans as primitive now realized the true extent of Earth's deception, and the implications were staggering. As the uproar continued, a small, avian representative from the Lyran Confederacy approached Hana. The Lyran had suffered under Crackx exploitation for centuries, their resource-rich world stripped and their people used as labor. "Earth has always spoken for the lesser species," the Lyran said, her feathers fluffed with emotion. "When our worlds were being devastated, only human representatives objected. When our people were enslaved, only Earth filed formal protests." She extended a winged hand in the universal gesture of alliance. "The Lyran Confederacy stands with Earth." One by one, other representatives came forward. The Newberry, whose atmospheric planets had been harvested by the Voidborn. The Trell, whose colonies existed on the edges of Crackx space. Dozens of species that had endured exploitation while the Council looked away. "We have monitored your communications," the Newberry delegate said, his tentacles forming patterns of respect. "For 40 years, humanity has been the only major power to treat us with genuine respect, to advocate for our rights even when it gained you nothing." By the end of the session, 27 species had formally aligned with Earth, not because of fear, not because of power, but because, as the Trell representative put it, "When you could have been conquerors, you chose to be protectors." As Hana left the Council chamber, Taiwan met her with urgent news. The combined Crackx and Voidborn armadas have changed course. They're no longer gathering at the Nexus point. "Where are they headed?" Hana asked, though she already knew the answer. "Directly to Earth. Estimated arrival in 72 hours. Hana nodded. For 40 years, humanity had hidden their true nature from the galaxy. They had watched and waited, building in secret while presenting a facade of technological inferiority. The waiting was over. "Send word to Earth Command," she said. "It's time to activate the solar shield." As the combined fleet of humanity's most powerful enemies approached, Earth prepared to defend not just their homeworld, but their vision for a more just galaxy. Admiral Sukli stood on the observation deck of Earth Defense Station Alpha, watching the approaching armada through the transparent dome. The combined Crackx and Voidborn fleet stretched across space like a massive storm cloud, thousands of warships against a single solar system. "They've entered the outer defense perimeter," reported General Han beside her. "Sensor platforms confirm 9,413 hostile vessels." Suk nodded calmly. Her silver-gray hair was pulled back in a simple knot, her uniform lacking the elaborate decorations favored by military leaders of other species. In her 80 years of service to Earth Defense Force, she had prepared for this moment. "Are the civilian shelters secured?" she asked. "Yes, Admiral. All Earth populations and colonial settlements have activated protection protocols. Civilian casualties will be zero, regardless of the battle outcome." Suk allowed herself a small smile. "Then it's time to end the charade completely. Activate the solar shield." Throughout Earth's solar system, thousands of stealth platforms suddenly revealed themselves. For decades, humanity had placed these defenses in careful positions, hidden behind moons, embedded in asteroids, drifting in the solar wind. Each platform contained technology the Council had believed impossible. Gravity manipulation systems, consciousness transfer fields, and non-lethal weapon arrays. The Crackx flagship, a massive dreadnought 15 kilometers long, led the invasion force. On its bridge, Emperor Du-hyun watched with growing confusion as strange devices appeared on his sensor displays. "What trickery is this?" he demanded. "Scan those objects." His science officer worked frantically at the controls. "Unknown technology, Emperor. They appear to be generating energy fields of a type our sensors cannot classify. Destroy them, Du Hyun ordered. All ships, open fire. The Crackx fleet launched its attack. Energy weapons, missile systems, and gravity torpedoes all directed at Earth's defense platforms. But the weapons never reached their targets. Space itself seemed to ripple around the human defenses, absorbing or redirecting the attacks harmlessly into empty space. Impossible, whispered the Crackx general as his display showed weapon after weapon failing. Earth's response began with light, a soft blue glow emanating from each platform. The light expanded, forming networks of energy that connected the platforms into a vast web surrounding the solar system. What followed wasn't a battle in any traditional sense. The defense grid activated in perfect sequence, each system targeting specific vessel types with precisely calibrated effects. Propulsion systems failed first, the massive Crackx battleships suddenly drifting powerless in space. Weapons arrays shut down next, their energy sources redirected into life support systems to ensure crew survival. The Voidborne ships, composed of exotic matter that most weapons couldn't affect, found themselves contained within specialized fields that neutralized their unique abilities without harming their conscious energy. Most remarkable were the drone swarms, millions of tiny devices that moved through the enemy fleet like schools of fish. These carried consciousness transfer technology, temporarily placing hostile crews into a peaceful sleep state while maintaining their vital functions. The battle that the Crackx had prepared for over months, that was meant to demonstrate their dominance and eliminate humanity forever, lasted less than an hour. Emperor Du Hyun stood on his bridge, surrounded by sleeping officers, as his flagship's systems shut down one by one. The massive vessel drifted powerless, surrounded by smaller human ships that had appeared from seemingly nowhere. A transmission request flashed on the only working screen. With no other option, Du Hyun accepted it. Admiral Suk Lee's face appeared, her expression neither triumphant nor angry, just determined. Emperor Du Hyun, she greeted him with a respectful nod. Your fleet has been disabled. Your crews are unharmed, but will remain in an induced sleep state until our negotiations are complete. You expect me to negotiate while your weapons are at my throat? The Emperor snarled. I expect you to listen. Suk replied calmly. We don't want your territory. We don't want your resources. We want reform. We want a council that protects all sentient life, not just the most powerful species. She leaned forward slightly. For 40 years, humanity has watched the strong prey upon the weak. We've documented every violation, every genocide, every species eliminated because they might one day become a threat. That ends today. You cannot change the nature of power, Du Hyun argued. The strong will always rule. Perhaps, Suk acknowledged, but strength can be used to protect as well as to dominate. That is the choice we offer you now. Join us in building a better system, or remain isolated as the galaxy moves forward without you. 3 months later, representatives from all spacefaring civilizations gathered on neutral ground, a newly constructed space station positioned at the exact midpoint between major galactic powers. The station's design incorporated elements from hundreds of different species, a physical symbol of the new cooperation. Commander Hannah Park watched as, one by one, representatives approached the central table to sign the new galactic charter. The document established a fundamentally different system, one where technological advancement wouldn't be punished, where resource exploitation required consent, and where genocide was explicitly forbidden under any circumstances. Humanity, now acknowledged as among the most advanced species, had refused to take a dominant position. Instead, they had proposed a balanced system of governance where power was distributed among all members, with special protections for developing civilizations. The Crackx, stripped of their empire, but not their dignity, sent a new representative, a younger, more progressive leader who had replaced Emperor Du Hyun through their internal succession rituals. The Voidborne, after initial resistance, had eventually recognized the inevitability of change and joined the new order as well. After the formal ceremony, Hannah found herself approached by a familiar figure. The Crackx diplomat who had once slammed his fist and declared humans irrelevant during that fateful council meeting. Commander Park, he greeted her, his posture showing the respect he had never before offered. I have been appointed as liaison between my species and yours. A good choice, Hannah replied. You understand where we came from. The Crackx studied her for a moment. I still don't understand, he admitted. With your power, you could have conquered us all. You could have taken our worlds, our resources, everything we built over thousands of years, yet you chose not to. Hannah smiled, thinking of humanity's long journey, from hiding their capabilities to finally revealing their true nature. We never wanted dominance, she explained simply. We studied history, our own and others. Every empire built on conquest eventually falls. Every civilization that rules through fear eventually faces rebellion. She gestured toward the gathering of species, former enemies now cautiously working together. We wanted something better. We wanted a galaxy where advancement is celebrated, not feared, where cooperation is valued over conquest. The Crackx considered her words carefully. And the deception. The 40 years of pretending to be weak. We never wanted dominance, Hannah repeated. We just wanted everyone to be civil, so we were polite until that was no longer an option.